Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this month's special Black Country Society Zoom meeting. It's good to see so many of you already listed on the screen in front of me, and I'm delighted to welcome tonight's speaker, who is Brian Carr. Brian's given us a little bit of biographical background, which I'll share with you. Born in Stourbridge, raised in Redditch, having lived in Brierley Hill for 40 years plus with his wife, Maddie, who's a retired teacher. Brian retired himself, having worked for more than 20 years in retail management with Asda all around the Black Country, and then 20 years with AF Blakemore in cash and carry and distribution management. 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters, and apparently when he's not photographing things, he's rather far too heavily involved with Redditch, cricket, hockey, and rugby club. How he finds time to do his photography, he remains to be seen, because that's what we're going to do, see his photography. Under the title of tonight's talk, Public Art in the Black Country. Before I hand over to Brian, can I ask you to make sure, please, that your mics are off so that we don't have a hubbub behind Brian trying to speak to us. Brian, it's a delight to welcome you. Handing over to you now for your talk.
Thank you. All I've got to do now is try and find out how to open up the pictures again. What can you see?
Nothing yet.
Go
to the bottom of your screen, Brian,
yeah,
and find share and press it.
Yes.
You're away. It's coming gradually. Now click on that little picture at the bottom of the screen.
Yes. Here you go. Good evening. Right. So, presentation about Black Country art and sculptures, public. It's an interest I've got. I'm no expert. I'm not going to teach you how to or tell you how to paint or how to sculpt or how the technical details behind it. It's simply a project which I started whilst I was still working, just taking pictures of sculptures all around the place. But when I retired, I thought I'd look into it a bit more and found that there wasn't really any set directory or information about the whole of the boroughs. There's a very accessible book by George Unzloppy, which was published in '99, which told you about the bigger stuff, but not the smaller stuff. There were bits and pieces online, and well, I thought I'd put that to rights. So I set up a website, took as many pictures as I could, and well, I'll talk you through what I found and hopefully enlighten you. You might be familiar with this picture here. This one's called a Millennium, Scott's Green Roundabout, down by Russell's Halls. Many roundabouts, they're obviously seen by motorists throughout, but there's plenty of stuff that's hidden away that you may not be familiar with, and I'll see what I can show you to liven your evening. This roundabout, Castlegate, very familiar, I'm sure, to anybody who's driven past it. All done by Andrew Burton. You've probably seen this stack of Ferrero Rocher or cannonballs, but has anybody noticed the odd one, which is situated the other side of the road, fallen off the pile? Well, it hasn't fallen off the pile, it's been put there deliberately. The heroic worker, but he's at the which roundabout? I've got too many prompts lists here and flicking back and forwards, so you'll have to excuse me for that, and I'll get used to this presentation in a minute. I won't sound so stunted. Castlegate roundabout, this gentleman, the heroic worker, You've obviously seen him. He's sometimes gets adorned with other things. He broke his shovel a few years ago. He had a cone put on it. He's got the Black Country banners. I've seen him also with a mask during COVID. But the stuff that you may not be familiar with is the Duncan Edwards, was it? Yeah, the dual carriageway up to Dudley and down the other side. Running parallel to that, you've got a series of these sculptures which are probably out of sight. I'm trying to remember the name of the road. Wolverton Road. This one's called Dawn of Time. There's half a dozen different sculptures down that way. And I wouldn't have found any of these had it not been for the contacts which I made with Steve Field, with the borough's art supremo, who not only has designed and commissioned many works of art and sculptures within the borough, but has also been behind other people's works as well. I got in touch with him, told him what I was hoping to do, set up the website. He embraced the idea. He's been so helpful in not only pointing me towards places and items which I wasn't familiar with, but also helping with finding who made them, being able to attribute them to the right people so that the website is as comprehensive as possible. This one of Steve's works, Long Entry. It's off Dudley Market leading down to King Street. A series of medieval depictions of life. That one's backwards, unfortunately, but you see it's Long Entry. On King Street, we've also got these coats of arms. There's a series of them. I hope they're going to stay there. I haven't been up there for a while to see whether they kept them in place with these installation of the trams, but hopefully they'll still be up there. And one of the older statues, Apollo in Coronation Gardens in Dudley. That one's by William Bloy, been there for, I think, 1930s that was installed. Earl of Dudley, that was at the top of the hill by the zoo. Again, an ancient piece, no idea who put, no, William Ward, according to my notes. But there's other stuff around Dudley, which you may not see so much. This one, it was, or is, on the Bailey's Charity School down in Tower Street. There's 2 or 3 of these little statues high up on the wall. They used to be painted ornately, I believe. Now they're just white. I don't know whether they've been cleaned off or whether just the rain's taken the rain off. You've got these heads. There's a series of them on the former County Courts Hall in Priory Street in town centre of Dudley. Plenty to see if you look above and around. This lady is sat on the top of Dudley Library. There's a big ornate sculptures all around the library and those buildings around there. Salamanders, symbol of Dudley Town, symbol of rejuvenation. There on the council offices on top of the doors. And then you've got the police doors, the old police station that's on the corner of whatever it is of the town. This is one of 4 panels. You can see they're beautifully carved there, done by GF Webb. That's well worth a visit, and I hope they're still in place. I don't know what they're doing with that building. I believe they're converting it into flats. But it's well worth a visit. They are very ornate. Green Man Entry is another one of Steve's. This is down opposite St Edmund's Church. And that's enough of Dudley. The Dudley Borough, of course, includes Stourbridge as well. So this is another area which has a lot of art for it to explore. These mobiles, these used to be, well, they've been taken down now, I believe, in the Crown Centre by the Tesco's, by the town hall. They're all metal. I'm guessing that one of them must have fallen at some point and they've been taken away. Health and safety issue, perhaps, which is a shame. I've no idea whether they're where they are now. At the bottom, Lower High Street, again, Steve Fields done these impressive, ornate, tiled displays. Here, see, I'm stumbling for the technical works, but you can see what they are. On the underpass at the bottom there. Very ornate, beautifully to look at. There's 4 or 5 up on the walls down there. Back up in the Crown Centre, you may have seen this train. I believe it used to be, before the Tesco was built in Stourbridge, in the Crown Centre there, the old Crown Centre, they moved it indoors. On the hour, they all move around. It's an old-fashioned musical clock, and you can see the guards come out and the train follows around. Very good. Again, another one of Steve Fields. He does a lot of work, or has done a lot of work around town. Behind the bus station, glass blower. This one's not one of Steve's. John McKenna designed this one. There's a smaller version down in Amblecote that keeps getting vandalized. You can see the long glass or the pipe that they blow through. The smaller one, people keep jumping and pulling the glass down and bending the pipe, which is unfortunate. Stourbridge Junction, one of the beautiful clock. This one designed by Anuradha Patel. Unmistakable. When I went back not so long ago and I thought that doesn't look the same. It's been repainted. You can see. So, well, maybe you can't see the angle. It's gone from pale violet to pale blue, but it's a beautiful clock. Round the corner from Stourbridge Station on the bridge. Probably never seen this. On the way to the car park on the other side of the road. It's called Chink, 2 champagne flutes. Excellent. And the most recent one in Stourbridge is your mural of Jude Bellingham, which is on the side of W.H. Smith's. Right. What I did find talking to Steve was that there was plenty of work at the Millennium. I believe the council commissioned some glass pieces to be displayed around the borough. One of them was in this school, which is the I've stopped referring to my notes. It's the school in Dudley. You can just about see at the bottom there, there's some trilobite or some ancient fossils that are embossed in glass. One of the other pieces which I heard about was at the Beacon Centre that used to be Mary Stevens Hospice. Beacon Centre for the partially sighted and blind. I got in touch with them and asked if I could see the item. They said, yeah, come on down, no problem. When I got there, they said, well, we don't really know where it is. So we had to hunt around and we found it hidden away in a loft. Well, it's not just in it. I'll show you the rest of it. It's on cast iron, glass pieces, all designed by people who are partially sighted. It's massive. And you can tell if that's cast iron with glass inside it, the weight of that is immense, which is probably explains why it was basically just put away in the loft and forgotten about until I called him. I don't know what's happened to it now. Well, I was there for a while we dusted this down and I took the photos, and the lady in charge was fascinated by the fact that I was taking the trouble to find it and to do the project at all. And she asked if I'd mind giving a talk to some of their people. They had day visits. And I said, yeah, fair enough, well, no problem. And then I realised that I'd just committed myself to giving a talk 2 lines about art. It set me panicking a bit. As it happened, it was great because this piece is so vast and it is so tactile, and much of it has been done in Braille. We were able to put it out on the table so that the folk with a partially sighted and blind could feel it, discuss it, talk about it, and it worked out. It was a good morning. One of the other pieces I'd heard about on this that the council had commissioned for the Millennium was in a church community centre somewhere within the borough. I won't embarrass them by saying where it is. I got in touch with the vicar and asked whether I'd be able to take pictures. And he said, well, you can, but we haven't got it at the moment. We're being redecorated. We've taken the piece down. One of my parishioners has got it in her garage, and when we've got it up sorted, repainted, we'll put it back on the wall. I'll give you a call. 6 months later, and I still hadn't heard from him, so I gave him another call to chase him up on it. And it turned out that in the meantime, that parishioner had unfortunately passed away. Her son didn't know what this stuff was, and I'd gutted her garage and got everything down the tip. It'd been thrown, lost. So now there's a commissioned work of art, unfortunately, has gone down the skip. I've got no record of what it was, what it looked like, and it's forgotten. It's gone. There are many examples along the way of things that have been hidden, forgotten, and hopefully with this website, as long as it keeps going, there's going to be a record there available for people to check up on. Schools. Now, here's a fun thing. You can't walk around schools these days with a camera. It's frowned upon. But I had to get permission to enter the schools, obviously, after hours or in the holidays. Some schools had got wonderful public art. This school in particular is Bellevue School at Wordsley. They had their own art trail. A dozen or so pieces that were installed, I think, 15, 20 years ago. This is one of the items. You see the welcome to children there. This is another item. Unfortunately, a lot of them were made of material which wasn't going to last. So when I looked around here in 2000, some of them were already falling apart. Some of them had gone completely. So again, a photographic record is probably all that's left of some of them. That one's at Bellevue School as well, again in Wordsley. Another school which has got some fantastic work of art is Brockmore, Bradley Hill. This piece is by Tim Tolkien. You may, if anybody's familiar with the Quarry Bank High Street, the junior school there, the fencing all the way up the high street in front of the school is by, well, not just him, with the children who had done the design for it, but Tim Tolkien was behind it. He's behind this ornate piece as well. You may have seen these on the documents I did for the Black Countryman magazine. The brickwork here is brilliant, echoing the badges, presumably, is what Brockmore has been named after, potentially. Again, another.
I have lost sound here. Is that just me?
Say again? Right. Again, another piece of Tim Tolkien's metalwork. There's lots of bits all over the place. There's a few pieces in Wolverhampton and in Sandwell Valley Park. He's done some work. A wonderful artist. When I was walking round, I forget what it was. walking around somewhere, I met somebody who was pond dipping. They was dipping for frogs. I was looking for butterflies, another side issue of mine. And we started talking about art for some reason. And he said, well, I'm a teacher. I'm pond dipping, taking them back for the biology class. My school's got some artworks. He invited me around again. This, as you can see all of it here, is a snake, a dragon, in the style of Gaudi, Spanish artist. They've done a wall at the back of the school. There you've got echoes of Van Gogh with his Starry Night. Pieces of work like this that obviously the school knew about it, the children knew about it, but the outside public wouldn't until I got there with my camera and I started photographing them and putting them online. Stuff like this. There's loads of schools who have got their own artwork, which I've had to get permission to photograph and record. Another place where I had to get permission to record with the artwork at Russell's Hall. This one's outside there. This one's called the organ donation sculpture. It's one of Steve Field's. It's the most prominent one outside Russell's Hall. You can't just walk around there with a camera. I had to have permission, jump through a few hoops, filled in forms, and arrived at once a quiet Sunday morning to take some pictures. Although I'd got a written permission to take the pictures, as the security guard advised me, what he hadn't got was permission for him to open doors to let me access some of the pieces, which seemed a bit petty, and we argued over it. But eventually, he let me in, and we got around. These are outside the Russell's Hall, and the railings in between the carriageways. And then inside this piece by Gerda Rubinstein, which used to be in Merry Hill Centre years ago with a water fountain. It was taken out again. I don't know, probably health and safety, as some child ran into these sharp corners, it probably caused some damage. This is again in Russell's Hall Hospital in one of the outside areas. Well worth a look. There's also river of stone. It's like spirals made in slate, as you can see, walkways. It's wonderful. Again, Russell's Hall. This one was Russell's Hall. This was Riverstone, Moon Bowl Birds by Joan Aiden in the Quiet Garden. There's loads of bits and pieces. And then there's a gnome garden, which is, well, it is a work of art. It's fascinating. Again, Russell's Hall. This outside the maternity wing, another one at Russell's Hall. And up on one top of one of the roofs, you can see a couple of floors up. These are fingerprints that have been laid out in gravel, very intricately. 4 of them. Wonderful. But I don't think the weather they'll be there for that long. They must blow away. Merry Hill Centre. Another area I had to get permissions to take photographs. The Lega, which is a wonderful piece there. You've probably walked past it a dozen times. Hopefully you stop to take a look at it. It's in the same area. Again, I had to get permission for this, I had to go out of hours, I had to go and ensure that when taking the pictures that I didn't photograph any of the retail units at all. Seemed a little bizarre, but rules is rules. This one's on the waterfront. The Spirit of the Waterfront by Chris Dunseith, just up the road from Merry Hill, around the corner from it. Kate's Hill. Bert Bissell, you may have read up on Bert Bissell. famous local chap, little philanthropist and hill climber. This one was actually in the church up there at, forget the name of the church. Again, I had to get permission, made a few phone calls, arrived on a Sunday afternoon to take some pictures. There was a congregation, they were about to start. There's about 7 or 8 of them. I think they thought I'd just turned up to join them, and they were most disappointed when I just took a couple of pictures and left them to it. But it's a wonderful piece of stained glass, as you can see, commemorating Bert's work within the borough. That's a top piece of it. You can see him releasing a bird. I used to have all this on a website called Simple Sites, and it really was Simple Sites. It was very basic. It's just what I needed. Upload pictures, put some script to it, job done. Unfortunately, Simple Sites got taken over by another company, OneCom. Little more complex, but that's another story. But while I was on Simple Sites, I could tell how many people visited each page. If you go on it, and hopefully you have already, you'll see that there are some, it's split out geographically within the borough. In fact, now within the whole of the Black Country. And the page that received the most views was the graffiti. To the right of on this picture that is Shore Road, on the left is the Duncan Edwards Way. That's the road over the top, obviously. You can see there that it gives some screens, not screens, something for them to paint on. Theoretically, you shouldn't go down there. There was fencing, but I did. He was down there. Took pictures of this wonderful graffiti. It's out of the way. It doesn't harm anybody. I took as many pictures as I could. I used to go there every 6-9 months or so, and what it did find is that paintings were constantly painted over paintings that were painted over paintings. So there's much of this is probably the only record that these works ever existed. Now that pathway or the track, which was the old freight line from Dudley to Brierley Hill, is now being reused for the tramway. And now there's proper fencing. I'm not going to go through there. I'm not going to attempt to see what's down there. I don't even know if they're being used. But you can see the skill of these graffiti artists. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but you can't argue about the quality of some of the paintwork. And they're doing it with a can rather than a paintbrush. They're amazing pieces of work. And as I say, it was the one page which got the most views. I mean, and not just 1 or 2 more views, dozens of more views than any of the other pages. Seemed to be very popular. I went down one day and there were some guys actually painting. I approached cautiously. We had a good chat. And evidently the walls were split up. For argument's sake, those 2 walls belonged to Dudley artists. Those over there belonged to Wolverhampton artists. A couple of others belonged to the Birmingham artists. They didn't stray. They had their own patch. They obviously knew their own work. And it worked a treat. Schemer met him in Wolverhampton while he was doing a piece as well. No problem taking the pictures, no problem talking, just didn't want their pictures taken whilst painting. You can see they're fascinating. Look at that. How somebody can do that with a spray can is, well, it's a skill, it's an art. But of course, the boundaries of Dudley Borough is pretty vague, with lots of overlapping. And I realised that I was taking a lot of pictures that weren't strictly speaking Dudley. The website is called Dudley Art PC. because that's what it was going to be. But then again, Cradley Heath is Sandwell. It's just round the corner. Tipton, likewise, Sandwell is just round the corner. And so the website started to grow and went from not just Dudley Borough to Sandwell, and then later Wolverhampton, and later finally Walsall, which took me a few years to get to the end, mainly because I live in Bradley Hill and the Dudley stuff was on my doorstep. Wolverhampton, Walsall needed some planning. It's a day away. Well, by the time you've got there and you've taken a few hours to walk around. So Walsall came last. We can see this work in Cradley Heath, the tribute to Mary McCarthy. Also, outside the Tesco's there's the tower. Who did this one? Luke Perry. A lot of work by Luke Perry and IHS around the borough, or around the whole of the Black Country and further. These are Luke Perry's as well. This outside Thomas's Church in Cradley itself. Tipton. I have no idea how long that's been there. That's been there. I've lived around here for 40 years and it's always been up there. Hopefully it still is. May not. Tipton Slasher. Again, a familiar piece and a familiar topic, which is also there on the stage, that the couple of archways at Tipton Station itself, showing the slasher in various poses within the waiting rooms of the Tipton Station. Some pictures there of industrial heritage. But going further afield, Bilston. I used to drive through Bilston on the way to work at Willenhall quite often. Plenty of stuff in Bilston. Quite why Bilston is such a hotbed of art compared to other towns within the borough, I don't know. But these bird houses on the pole on the Black Country Way, in Bilston itself, some name tags, name poles there. They've been done by Kate Madison. Very ornate again. More recently, Bilston have put these, well, they're 6 foot tall, those big walkways. If you walk around there, so you've seen them. These are half a dozen blue grills at the other end of the high street in Bilston. All representations of part of the industrial heritage we've had. And that's even more reason I found that last year when I was walking around seeing if there's anything fresh that been put up. No idea who instigated it or implemented it, but there's plenty of new stuff popping up all over the place. Wensfield is another area that I was unfamiliar with. Digging a bit deeper, I found they've got an art trail. If you look online, you can download an app which will direct you to the various pieces of art around Wensfield and the Bentley Bridge shopping centre area, which these are only about a foot high. There's 4 or 5 different pieces around the whole of the area. And again, fascinating to see. Planet Art did these. It's wonderful to see something so small that hasn't been vandalised. Somebody could easily have, well, they could try at least, but they're readily vandalisable, if that's a word. They haven't been. People have respected them, which is wonderful to see. Here's another one similar. Like I say, it's only about a foot tall. But then a much bigger piece. This one's again Luke Perry. This one's entitled Battle of Sangari. in the Bentley Bridge shopping area. Wonderful piece of Haitian soldier. Round the corner by the swimming paths in Wensfield, this piece is called Splash. No, it's not. It's called The Night Swimmer. I can't see what the representation is, but it's an enormous, great piece. It looks more like knives, but it's wonderful to see. These are along the roadside in Wensfield. Tucked around the back in a housing estate is a giant sundial. This is one of Steve Field's. I found out after, according to the Wensfield website, to say this app, they couldn't attribute it. They knew it was there, they'd recorded it, but they didn't know who did it. So I got in touch with Steve and said, do you know who did this one? He said, yeah, it was me. I've tried to get hold of Wensfield art people to notify them so Steve could be attributed. I just can't get hold of them. I can't get any response. So according to their website, it's unattributed. So we move to Wolverhampton. This above the bank. Again, it's obviously been there for a long time, but it's a wonderful piece of art carved into the building there. But on a more modern note, this graffiti, anti-socialism, Castro. This piece is in where is this one? The Art Gallery in Wolverhampton. St John's Retail Park, again, Wolverhampton. There's loads around the barriers, not the fencing. They're representations of the logos of former car manufacturers. And in the Manza Centre itself, artworks come and go. Warsaw. This piece is called The Source of Ingenuity by Tom Lomax. I can't say I understand it, but I can appreciate its skill, its beauty. It's a massive piece in the Warsaw Town Centre, just around the corner from the Sister Dora, which is a more traditional sculpture, statue to a woman of distinction that worked within Warsaw. But there's other buildings. That's the nice thing about the Warsaw and the Wolverhampton, the older buildings still remain. And this one, I think, is the Taylor's music store that was. And not only is the ornate stuff there, but there's other panels which show composers, musical instruments, and it's well worth a look. You can see some more of the ornate sculpture work there. But at the other side of town, what looks like an advertising hoarding, again, is a work of art. I haven't been able to establish who put this up. It's perhaps 25 yards long. There's a dozen or more panels, all have numerical representations of things that have happened within Warsaw. Art comes in all forms and shapes and sizes. Within the train station, now that's not quite so clear as it should be. There's some wording on panels within the train station, which is worth a look. But of course, not just urban art and sculpture, there's plenty hidden behind the scenes. And this is where my website is probably at its weakest, because the parks that you're familiar with aren't necessarily the parks I'm familiar with. Now, this is Saltwells. This is Doug. This one's Luke Perry. And he's done a series of metallic creatures. There's your dog. There's a wonderful squirrel made up of chains and nuts and bolts. And you've also got an owl that's up there and the dragon tied up for its own safety. Mushrooms, plenty of it about. Now I'd seen these, I'd recorded these, and I'd heard there was some birds, some ducks. I couldn't find them. So I managed to track down one of the wardens one day. I said, "Can you tell me where the ducks are hiding?" And they pointed me towards them. It wasn't the main Saltwells areas I was expecting. It was down by the Mousesweet Brook. And then we eventually found them. Expected them to be of a similar size to this. They're massive. You can sit on them. Enormous great mallards. Tim Tolkien's fascinating metalwork. Skipping back there, these again in Saltwells, Robert Cossey, load of woodwork. But because of wood and its very nature of the wood, it decays. He did have a lot of pieces of work in there. Many of them are gone now. But there's still a couple of chimps. And they say there's totem pole that. But it's because of there's no records or very few records of stuff that's put into parks. It's only through word of mouth that I'm now finding out when people get in touch and say, "Did you know about this? Did you know about that?" Which is helping me get around to making this website as complete as possible. There's a park in Wensbury, Willenhall, sorry. Again, there's a robin on his pole. The park, I think it's at the Memorial Park in Willenhall. There's loads of birds, wooden, metal, and other sculptures in this park, yet they're not recorded as such. You wouldn't know until you actually got there, which is why there's probably loads of stuff in parks around the whole of the Black Country that I haven't found yet because I just didn't know they were there. Now, there was some stuff that I was aware of, but it's long gone. People may be familiar with the Churchill stained glass that used to be in the Churchill Centre in Dudley. But again, I believe part of it fell a few years ago in a storm, so they took the whole thing down. Whether it was for the protection of the glass itself or the protection of the customers not having it fallen on their heads, I don't know. But at Wordsley School of Art, I'd heard that there was some, well, whatever that is, carvings that were high above. I'd seen it recorded, but I hadn't seen any pictures. And on the website, I'd flagged that I needed some pictures or would be interested. And this is what brings me full circle, because there's a gentleman in America looked at the website. He got a couple of these pictures. He forwarded them to me. And it was he that introduced me to the Black Country magazine, society, which is why I'm here now. See, thank you, guy in America, for your evening. See, there's a couple of them there. More recent stuff. Again, Steve Field. This is Stourbridge. I don't know if you're familiar with the road from Stourbridge to Wolverhampton that passes over the Stour. He's put up on parapets. It's I believe it's when King Charles or James, I forget which one, fleeing from Worcester during the War of the Roses. No, the Civil War. There you go. New stuff coming up all the time. There's also a new piece in Brierley Hill commemorating the Round Oak Steelworks. that was closed down 30 years ago. Massive great cauldron that's pouring molten steel. Not officially been opened. It's up and running. It's out there. It's had mixed reviews. Some people think it's one. I think it's wonderful, but other people consider it to be a waste of money. Well, they're entitled to their opinions. That's the last slide I've got for you. I did have a script, as I said. I don't think I've missed anything in particular. What I would say is, though, that if you can get the chance to look at Black Country Art BC, sorry, DudleyArtBC.com, look through your area, the ones that you're familiar with, and if there's anything that you can't find on there, there's a fair chance that I'm not aware of it. There's a website email address which is on the website. Drop me a note. Let me know whether there's anything missing. Let me know any comments you've got to make about it. I'd appreciate it. I'd like to make the website as complete as possible. I'm never going to be able to get everything, but I reckon I've got most of it. I'd like to get the full set. And that's the end of my show.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Could you stop sharing? And we'll go to questions. Those of you who've been on a virtual heritage group meeting before will know that we basically do questions by putting things in the chat function. And I'll read them out and Brian will answer them if he comes back from wherever he's going.
Can you give me 2 minutes, please?
He'll be back in a second, he says. Hope he will. Please, could you put things in the chat function if you have questions or comments? One comment that came through is about where the website is. Can you give the website address? And I think you can just search Dudley Art on Google. But if you go to, I'm sure it's in the Black Countryman recently, if you go to the events page on the website, you'll find it there as well. I will, if I can sort of work out how to do it, which might be possible, I will try and put it onto the chat function, but I won't promise that. But anyway, let's have a look at some of the other things. I mentioned, Brian, that locomotive you showed right at the start was probably the Stourbridge Lion.
Yes,
going round and round on the weather front, and we're coming up now, not far off the bicentenary of the Stourbridge Lion, sometime in 2028, I think. So I hope the Society will do something about that. A couple of comments from Brendan. Thank you, Brian. You've done everyone a service in pulling all the material together. From Emma Purse has brilliant work. What a wonderful thing to have done. And Emma and one or two others have actually put up your website address in chat so people can get hold of that.
Super, thank you.
Keith Bracey says, there are wooden animal sculptures in West Smethwick Park in Sandwell that you might not be aware of, Brian, as I've only been there a couple of years after Sandwell Council spent 5 million on the park. My friend Carol Jiwala of Mango Mosaics is currently working on a new mosaic artwork in West Smethwick Park called A Game of Chance, reflecting the philanthropy of the Chance brothers, who once owned the largest glassworks in the world, Chance Glass in Spon Lane in Smethwick. And Keith's given his email address in the chat, and I can pass it on to you if you want to make contact, Brian, as well.
Yes, please.
Are there any more comments that folk would like to make? I seem to have run out of comments in chat, as far as I can see. Any more coming? Well, on that basis, then, I think it falls to me to say a big thank you to Brian for all that is shared with us, and we're most impressed by the website.
And the
Diane
website's
Clutterbuck writes, she's just written something so varied and interesting, Brian. Thank you. I see there's a short list of public art in Wolverhampton, which includes Bilston and other places. That must be on your website.
well, yes. I would think you'll find the website's a lot more interested than me talking. So
Yeah, okay, I'm sure they don't. So again, thank you for that. Can I just make an advert for the next meeting? The next meeting you must all attend because it's by the chairman of the society and we'll be taking a register. Malcolm Dick is talking about James Carr, 1785 to 1820. 1820, that looks terribly young. Innovation, the Lunar Society, and Inventing the Black Country. James Carr isn't that well known, but he had a huge impact on the environment round Tipton, I believe. And so we look forward to Malcolm telling us about that. But thank you again for logging on tonight. And the recording should be online sometime relatively soon. And I look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting. And
okay,
thank you again, Brian. Thank you.
No, it's fine. Can I just say what I have got is a typed out list of all the art, all the pictures we've just seen, where they are and who designed them, who have sculpted them. If anybody wants to get in touch by email, I can forward a copy of that spreadsheet to them.
Well, one thing you could do, Brian, if you wished, is to send it to me and I can put it on the website, but you might not wish it to be that public.
Okay. No, I'll send it to you. Yep,
okay, that's
fine.
grand. Lovely. Thank you again.
No problem.